Hello, homeschooling parents. My name is Meredith Kaunitz, and I am the master teacher at Art Play Learn. And I am here today to talk to you about how you can leverage online classes to make your own curriculum. At Art Play Learn, a lot of our families make their own curriculum for lots of different reasons. Um, it tends to be cheaper, it tends to be more flexible. There are lots of good reasons to do it. So I just wanted to give you some tips as to how you could try this on your own. So the first step that you want to take really in creating your own curriculum is you want to know where your kids are in the various skills, right? So if you need help, we can do another one about how to assess your kids' skills along the way without making them take tests all the time, because tests don't really tell you all that much, actually. But that's a whole other topic, so we'll do that another time. But basically, if you're taking some online courses, hopefully you're allowing them to choose topics that they're interested in to practice skills that they need to practice, or that they're interested in practicing. Both are valuable. So the first thing that I would do is hopefully you're choosing online classes that provide you with video recordings of the classes. Good classes will always provide you at least with some sort of follow-up that tells you exactly what they did, or at least generally what they did in each class. That may even give you materials and resources to use in between. I do that with most of my classes. All of my classes have a video recording afterwards, and have some sort of ability for you to ask follow-up questions to the teacher. So that's part of choosing an online course. That was actually in my last segment. So once you've done that, and here you are, you're enrolled in this great online course, you have a teacher who is recording and making those recordings available to you. Your first step when they come out of class is to be curious. Ask them. Don't ask them how it went, right? Don't ask them what they learned, because you're going to get, I don't know. Ask them specific questions. Ask them, what activities did you do in class today? What did you like about what you did in class today? What was easy? What was hard? Right? And those things are going to give you some really great information about, one, what actually went on in class, what they engaged with, what they took away from it, and what they perceive to be their strengths and weaknesses and their interests. All right, so that's really, really golden information that will help you build on whatever it is that they did. The second thing that I would do is let a day or two pass and then watch the video together. While you're watching the video, participate as if you are in class. So there are a couple of things that you might want to do, right? So if it's, for example, a language class and the teacher is asking questions, pause the video, have them answer the question, and then see in the class what the right answer turned out to be. Because that will reinforce their learning in a very, very constructive way. The second thing is you pause and take notes or help them clean up their notes. One thing that I've noticed is very few students know how to take effective notes. And that's not only limited to homeschooling families. That is across the board. Very few people know how to take notes. I wasn't taught how to take notes, to be honest. Nobody taught me how to take notes. I learned in my adulthood how to take more effective notes. And I'm still not really good at it, to be honest. So that's one of the things I actually embed in some of my classes is I will say to them, okay, I'm going to put this on the board like this, but in your notebook, this is how you should organize it. So when you come back, it makes sense, right? So that's a really important skill, because when you get out into the world, you're going to have to sit in meetings, depending upon what kind of job you have. You're probably at some point going to have to sit in meetings. You're going to have to sit in trainings. You're going to have to sit in a phone call with a customer or a potential client, and you're going to have to be able to make notes that when you look at them again, make sense to you, right? So that's a really valuable skill. So stop the video, have them take notes and look at what they wrote down and say to them, okay, so next time when they're doing this, maybe you should write it down in this way, because look at what your notes are and look at what we just watched. If I just saw that a year from now, I would have no idea what that means, right? Or maybe they're really good at taking notes and you don't need to do that. But it's always helpful. I find even nowadays, I like to record meetings and things so I can go back and I can clean up my notes. I can add to it. I can make it make more sense, whatever. It's a great way to re-engage with the material. And you get like an extra class out of it, basically. When you're done or through the course of watching and participating in the class, ask them, what connections do you see to our life, right? Where have you seen this before? Where do we use this skill? Where could we use this skill where we're not using this skill? Or our habits, or their interests, right? That's all really golden information that you can build on. So then the next step that I would take is, based on what they're doing, find outings that you can use to reinforce whatever it is they're studying. If they're studying Japanese, go out to a comic book store and see if you can find some Japanese manga and peruse them. You don't have to necessarily buy them, but peruse them, set up the expectation ahead of time. You can go to the Asian Art Museum. There are so many different things that you can do. There are lots of, it depends on where you live, obviously. I happen to live close to Washington, D.C., so we've got all the Smithsonian museums like literally in our backyard. So that makes it way easier for us. But every community, I've lived in a lot of different places, and every community has some kind of resource. If you can't find museums, parks, arts and crafts markets, fairs, a lot of places have, artisans who are super excited to have somebody get interested in what they do, right? You can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm homeschooling my kids. They happen to be studying this thing that aligns with what you do. Would you mind if we came out one day and talking to them and showing them what you do and showing them your craft? People love stuff like that. If there's a local university, right, reaching out to a professor and saying, hey, my kids are really interested in such and such. Do you have a graduate student who would be willing to just, hop on a Zoom and talk to them about, whatever? People are really, really generous, I think you'll find, and really excited when you get interested in whatever it is that their passion is. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to go out into the world and take them out to do things. It can be anything. Like if you live near the beach, there are opportunities at the beach to follow up on all kinds of things. If you live near the woods, there are lots of opportunities to just go into the woods and find things and all kinds of stuff. Find related books and videos. If you can, with ebooks are great. There are lots of services where you have access to all kinds of books all over the place. With YouTube and other places, you can find all kinds of videos on just about anything. Make sure you watch the whole video before you show it to your kids, because you really never really know what could pop up in the middle. But those are great resources. There are a lot of free apps out there that are games that build on specific skills. So once you know what it is your kids are having trouble with, where they need to be challenged, what their interests are, then you can reinforce what they're learning in their class with these other activities. Um, if a teacher gives you a list of books that they're going to use, go out and get those books ahead of time, but don't read them until they've done it in class. Because what happens is they read the book before class starts, and then the teachers may be asking them questions about, well, what do you think this book is going to be about? And they already know what it's about, right? So it interrupts that thought process. And then you have the possibility that kids are going to be like, oh, we have that book and that character's, and then it's a spoiler for all of the other kids. But have it so that after class, they can go get it and they can page through it. They can hold it in their hands. They can reread it if they want to. They can say, hey, Mom, we did this book in class. I'm so excited. I can't believe that we have this book, right? And play dumb. Like, that's so amazing. I can't believe that you did that. What a coincidence. Those are great ways to reinforce as well. You can create projects that build on whatever skill they are practicing. And it can be anything. If they're doing a math class where they are learning to multiply and divide fractions, for example, you can apply that to cooking with them, right? Take out a recipe, even if you don't usually use recipes to cook with. I don't really, honestly, but we use recipes for homeschooling activities in my house, right? So we'll sit there and he can read each activity. We do strategic planning. Okay, so we're going to read through the whole thing and make sure that we have everything we need before we even start, right? Then let's see, what things do we need to get out? What kinds of measurements are we going to need? What kind of tools do we use to measure the various things? That sort of thing, right? And then he reads each ingredient. We get everything out, each instruction. Okay, so what does that mean? Tell me in your own words. What are we going to do, right? Which tools are we going to use to do that? And then we'll take a recipe and we'll either double it or halve it or make it a third or make it 3 times, depending upon what your situation is. You have a big family gathering coming up. Maybe you need a lot of something. It's a perfect opportunity to practice something like that. They get all kinds of great practice with that hands-on stuff. And when they're working with you, then that's when you get the opportunity to say, okay, well, let's think through this. How does this work? And then they have a practical goal that helps them care what half of a teaspoon is, for example, right? Let's see. Have them sit down and write down their opinions, right? Do a brain dump at some point. It doesn't have to be right after a class. You can have them, they do a class one day, the next day at that same time, they sit down and do a brain dump of everything that they remember about that class. Write something about their opinions. Did something come up that they were discussing that they have an opinion about? Have them really think about and write out their opinions. It's a great writing sample. Have them decide what they'd like to do for a follow-up and write a persuasive essay convincing you that you should take them to such and such museum, or take them to the beach, or take them to the amusement park so that they can practice measuring velocity or whatever it is. There's another work sample right there. Create a fictional story embedding some of the facts or skills from class, right? So that's one of my favorite integrations that I use is, okay, we're going to make up a story and we're going to base it on this thing that you're learning because you said you were interested in it, right? And so then you can go deeper, you can get all kinds of different skills. If you have a child who has a disability, dyslexia, dysgraphia, you don't have to sit there and make them do the handwriting, right? There are all kinds of totally legitimate modifications that you can use to practice the composition, to practice the language, to practice the thinking that is the skill of writing, right? Writing doesn't have to be making marks on a surface. Okay, so it's totally fair to turn on speech to text. It's totally fair to have them write a story, or even, some kids get really, really into it and it turns into a little chapter book. Totally fair to have them dictate to you, or have them say the story into a recording, make a voice recording, and then transcribe it themselves through typing. There are lots of different ways around it. And be responsive to your kids. That's why you're homeschooling, right? It's the whole point of homeschooling, is that you can do things in the way that works for them. So I hope that was helpful. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. My email address is info@artplaylearn.com. You can find out all about our programs at www.artplaylearn.com. And you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Twitter. Follow up if you have questions, if you need help. It's what we're here for. All right. Thank you so much.